Okay, good evening. The Design Review Board number 1 public meeting of April 15th, 2010 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call, Board Member Aliano.
Here.
Board Member Palmer. Here. Board Member Simonian.
Here.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Chairman Insua.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on April 8th, 2010. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Are there any oral communication cards that you're aware of?
There are
I
not.
do not have any. All right. Which brings us directly to review calendar. I'm not aware of any staff announcements at this time. That brings us to the Design Review Board. And there is only one item on tonight's agenda. And I will turn this meeting over to Chairman Insua, forgive me, old habits die hard, and then over to Dennis Joe.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The first case today is 1 PDR 2010-004-A. Address is 1400 Highland Avenue. Why don't we have our staff report?
Thank you. Good evening, member of the board and Mr. Chair. I'm going to approach the board as I start my presentation. Once again, the address for this property is 1400 Highland. This project is the first time submittal for final review. The project summary is to legalize the nail-on new construction fiberglass sliding windows on a single-family home. There is no new floor area for the addition. I'm sorry, there's no new floor area proposed with this project. The new windows were installed prior to obtaining proper review and approval from the Community Planning Department. Onto the existing property, it's a 1,877 square foot single family home with a 780 square foot detached garage built in 1947. The lot is approximately 10,740 square feet on a corner. It gently slopes upwards along Olmsted Drive and is relatively flat in other areas, as you can tell right here. And it's highly visible from virtually almost all areas from Highland and Olmsted. And there's exhibits of the photos as you go along Highland and Olmsted. The zoning of this property is R1, low density residential. The site planning and mass and scale, there have been no changes as there is no new floor area for the project. Onto the building design and detail. The original style of the home is a minimal traditional style home. Most windows for this style of home are described as traditional windows, which have double hung, which is the most common, casement or fixed window, and were constructed of wood. Traditionally, wood windows are recessed in placement, feature wood frames and sills, and if they had grids, they were placed on the exterior. The windows are being proposed are nail-on new construction with a fiberglass material. They do have a horizontal sliding operation with internal muttons with about approximately 1 inch, 2 inches along the perimeter, which exhibits like a craftsman style like pattern for the grids, as you can tell on the elevations. These windows have a flush insulation. They have a flat appearance, which is inconsistent with the original design. It reduces the aesthetics of the facades, and the windows lack any trim or sill, which exaggerates the flat appearance. The analysis of the design and the detail of the project, once again, the windows were traditional. The openings for these windows were taller and not as wide. The proposed windows demonstrate a disproportionate appearance as they are a horizontal sliding operation. So as you can tell, the original openings did exhibit a hung window which operated up and down, but the installed windows have a disproportionate where it slides horizontally. Staff recommends the replacement of the windows reflect a traditional placement, operation style, and to be constructed of a quality material. These windows should have a recessed placement, be single hung or double hung, or even a casing operation. Once again, constructed of quality material, such as wood-clad aluminum, or fiberglass. And if a button, which usually were to be applied, it would be on the exterior and would be a simple horizontal, one horizontal button going across. And lastly, staff recommends the wooden frame and sill should return to the window openings. Just as ending comments, I'd just like to add, just kind of go into the history of this project. A building permit had been issued for the addition at the rear. So if you look at the site planning, although this is an exhibit, just to show the area or the site planning of this house, there had been a minor addition at the rear, and it was approved and it had been constructed in January 2008. The plans demonstrated that the windows back here were to be fiberglass hung windows, recessed, and the existing windows all around were to remain as wood and existing. Subsequently, a window application had been approved by the planning counter. What they proposed were fiberglass hung windows, recessed, with treatment with the sills and frames. And when the building department, the inspections went out there, they were unable to final it as these windows had been installed. The homeowner attempted to legalize the windows over the counter. However, staff determined the planning division cannot grant an approval and recommended a design review board application to obtain an approval. Typically, these window changeouts are done over the counter, and this request is uncommon for the design review board. However, staff cannot approve this at an administrative level because of the design concerns. Staff feels that this project is not aligned with the intent of the design guidelines. The windows are inconsistent with the overall design of the home and do not appear appropriate in the context of the immediate neighborhood. The board has the option to have the project returned for redesign or provide specific conditions with which the project could be approved. And that's pretty much ends staff's presentation, and I'll be available for any further questions.
Any questions, of course? Yes.
The northeast view, the bottom right corner
Correct.
of the pictures,
Correct.
is that basically the portion that is part of the permit that was obtained for that addition?
That's correct. This photograph you see of the northeast view is this bump out right here at the rear.
And you indicated that the permitting was based on hung windows that were to be recessed
That's correct. Hung windows, fiberglass recessed.
with sills.
Correct.
And that would match the existing that was out
The-
there?
What the building plans demonstrate that they were existing hung windows. There are Google Street views of that exhibited what was there before, although we don't know when Google had, but it does demonstrate what the windows did look like sometime in the past.
And they were, as Ms. Palmer is saying, double hung wood windows on the
And Mr. Joe, were there any public comments that you received on this project?
Correct. I did receive a few phone calls in opposition, and I advised them if they were not able to make the design review board meeting, I highly advised them to send me an email. I believe there had been some emails that were sent to some board members. Some of them bounced back. I'm not too sure, but I haven't received any correspondence that I can provide you in writing from them. But that had been addressed via telephone to me.
And one thing I wanted to mention is that As you know, typically staff makes a recommendation for return for redesign or approve with conditions. In this one, we've provided two options, which we typically don't do. I wanted to explain that a little bit.
Okay.
As Mr. Joe mentioned, we typically we do a lot of work with our applicants over the counter, and typically a window change out is something that we can approve over the counter. If the board were to give specific direction, that would assist us in working with the applicant with very specific conditions, then it wouldn't have to come to the board for a second time, even if the project is completely different than what's proposed. Usually, if we're proposing a number of conditions that are completely different than what's proposed, we recommend a return for redesign. In this case, because you see so very few window change-outs, we wanted to give you the option there. Thank you.
A quick question, Mr. Joe. Given the nature of the addition that they did get a permit for, it probably did not come to DRB because you can't see it from the general street, so it was done without DRB necessary.
It was a
Right.
That's correct.
And what year was that again? For the
That
permit?
was January 2000.
2000, just recently. Okay.
So on these plans where it says existing window, as those, what is that actually referring to?
The existing windows, are you referring to the window schedule as they...
Just in the
in
floor
row?
plan, yeah, because, I mean, they call out some as new and some as existing.
Oh, correct. Although from my understanding is that these should be all proposed windows, as the approved building plans did demonstrate these were to be hung windows, fiberglass also as well. They don't match the
So there should be no distinction between an existing window and a new one, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any additional questions for staff for the
I have actually one question. In terms of the inspection process, when the inspector goes to look at the work, do they go look at it when it's all finished, or is there like an intermediate inspection, like a framing, before they start doing, the waterproofing and getting the plaster finished? Is that a two-step inspection, or do they just come at the end and be done with it?
Although this was design review exempted, planning staff didn't have the opportunity to do the framing or the final. I need to obtain clarity maybe from the building department, since that's conducted from the building inspector. I'm not too sure if anyone else can chime in, but I would need to obtain clarification.
So you don't know then whether this was just a one-time inspection when the work was finished and they wanted to get sign-off, the inspector comes there and says, well, these don't match what the permit says. He walks away from it, and that's why we're here.
That's correct.
I think we can assume that it's a typical addition where they would have multiple inspections.
Yeah, well, in that case, then why was the house finished? Maybe we can ask the applicant.
Yeah, an interesting, good question, because when I think of the type of inspections that you would be getting for this addition that they did in the permit, they put in a new electrical system too, so that a lot of inspection would have been typically part of this project.
So was the work finished, just without any approvals, or really the question?
I mean, yeah.
Because at this point, to fix the problem is going to be very tough.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine at least inspectors going out there at least 4 times, clearing side yards and all that other stuff, plus the foundations, framing, roofing, electrical, a lot of rough electrical. And then,
But that was, because there was that little addition, right?
right.
So he was inspecting the addition, but perhaps at that time, maybe they hadn't changed the windows in the house.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of unknowns,
Just to bring
right?
clarity of the minor addition, was this small bump out here and this small bump out right here. So It's roughly this minor portion at the rear. As you can see from these photographs, it would be this one, and you can look from looking from Olmsted, it would be this portion and this portion.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
And the drawings that were submitted specifically said all of the windows to remain?
That's correct.
Any more questions? Okay, why don't we have the first speaker? Why don't we have the owner as recorded here as the owner, Roma Kalatanian. There's another, I guess the owner doesn't want to come first, or? Okay, well, let's change it then. Okay, never mind, why don't we change it? Why don't we, a person named Other Armic, and I can't read the last name, but I know you, of course. Your name and address, please, sir.
Armic Shanazarian with AMAC Group, 639 West Broadway, Glendale 91204. Good evening. Let me clarify a little bit about this project. As indicated in January of 2008, there was a permit issued for this project for addition. And there were indicated on the plans the windows to be changed also in that part of the additional windows to be installed. Now, windows to be installed on that project is exactly, if I may show it to you.
Of course. Please bring it up.
Velvet ropes, that's nice.
Thank you, sir.
These are the windows that being installed and it's viewed from the public.
Okay, if you want, go back to the phone and then we can pass around. Thank you, sir. Start over here.
So those two windows that you could see, it's exposed from the public view, and it's exactly the same windows that being installed throughout the building. So on that date, it was exempted, those windows, and the owner installed exactly the same windows throughout.
Do you have the, forgive me, sir, do you have the plans
Yes.
that were originally approved? If you can give it to Mr. Joe.
This is a copies of it, and I think building department has it, but I do have a copy.
Okay.
of it.
All right, okay, continue if you don't mind, sir.
And then, to me, it's a questionable item that if you approve the window, we installed fiberglass exactly the same throughout. So I don't understand that. How could you not approve the same thing that is exposed to the public view to be consistent with the design of the building? I mean,
Well, do we have proof that these were approved? Is there something?
Yes.
Do we have anything?
I do have it in my office, the original one, but these are the copies that the owner brought it. I do have the original.
So
The
what we
city
have-
has those.
So what the drawings that we have here,
Those two windows were installed with the permits, which was part of the addition.
Okay.
We'll look at it.
Anything else, sir?
And then what I did, I had a courtesy, I mean, I went out to the block and made copies of, even though they're not good copies, prints,
just that
but
one then.
picture of the windows within the neighborhood that shows that type of a
I am confused.
frame and that type of a windows being installed throughout in that neighborhood within a block. Of
Okay,
the
if you can give it
property.
to Mr. Joe. Of course. Okay. Anything else, sir? Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Do we have,
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Holding the city council meeting formally now? Also, is there a panic button in here? Because somebody pressed it, and that's why we're here.
You just press the microphone.
Now, is it?
no? We have a red button here, but
Probably, did they give you a foot, your knee to have it or something? or-
But they rarely work.
they didn't work before. They didn't work before.
Right. And I don't even know if that's it, but as long as everybody's okay, then we're okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay. That was exciting. Okay.
All it for me? No.
No. Any questions? Do we have any questions for the applicant, Mr.? No,
Do we know where the panic button is?
no, just don't touch anything.
Well, the plans that demonstrate that had been handed over by the applicant, the windows schedule demonstrates that the addition were to have fiberglass dual hung windows, and all the windows at the existing portions, it says existing wooden, to remain wooden existing windows.
Got it. Right. Very good. Okay. Yes, sir.
The picture that's presented to us, they're pointing out to these side windows. I believe it's this window.
Correct.
And So the applicant is referring to this window, which is apparent from the street, which has the craftsman style
Slider.
Slider.
Is that on the approved plan?
Which is different than what's on the approved plan.
And we'll get a chance to, when everyone's, thank you, sir. Okay. What we'll do is we'll just have everyone speak, and then we'll take some time and see what we got. Okay. The next speaker is recorded here is the owner, Roma Catalanian. Please approach the podium and your name and address, sir, please.
Calantarian, 1400 Highland, 91202.
Thank you.
What happened is we got approved with those the sliding door and those 1 to the 4 other windows, which is clearly visible from the street from Homestead, not from the Highland. Only one of them is visible from Highland, and the rest of them is visible from Homestead. And the people over here, when we got approved, they said we're not going to allow you to use any vinyl windows. We're going to let you use the fiberglass windows because they're just like wood. You can paint them. I remember every single conversation because I really didn't want to put any fiberglass windows because they cost me $25,000. And then, so when we did that, I also asked them if I do this now and then my financial is going to be okay. Can I do the rest? The same windows, they said yes. That's what we're telling you to do, just the fiberglass windows and not the vinyl. And then that's it, basically. That's all I can tell you, and that's what we did.
Okay.
I did what they told me to do, basically. I mean, if something's wrong, then I don't know how to explain.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Yu. Mr. Yu.
So when you
Yeah, that's what we got approved for, and the inspector came. Yeah, the inspector came. They saw that too, and they approved us also with everything. You know, the inspector came in. We show him the permits, and he approved.
But, I mean, you've seen the drawings.
Yeah. Yes.
Do they say slider
Yeah, we
fiberglass?
brought the permits to the city, and the city approved us, and then the city inspector, they came almost every week. They would come and sign all the work we've done because we done major change over there. We done all the electrical, all the piping, all the roofing. We changed everything completely in the house. We didn't leave anything. Even the drywall's inside, everything. So he was there every weekend.
drawing
We showed him the
double
windows,
hung, right?
everything.
Yes, once again, the window schedule for the addition, once again, says fiberglass, dual glaze, double hung windows.
Double hung.
And then the existing windows, it says to remain wooden existing windows.
You see how there's a
Yeah, but
there's a
the
discrepancy.
inspector signed. If they wouldn't sign on a permit that it's okay to have those, I would never do it. I would just know from the beginning those are bad windows, and I wouldn't install them. I mean,
Right, but you have to understand, on the permit, see, it doesn't say these windows are matching whatever the drawings say, and he signs off. I mean, he signs off inspections, pretty specific inspections.
I thought he didn't sign off.
Well, he didn't sign off the final, but there's no
Those are-
box that says these windows are perfect, you know. There's no...
Yeah.
Let's clarify something. Was a final certificate of occupancy obtained from the city?
So, please.
Well, do you know, or should we ask?
yes,
Okay,
they did
hold
all
on,
the work
hold on,
for
hold
me,
on,
so
please.
mostly they know.
Okay, hold on. Anything else you want to add to it, sir?
And then that's it. Just when I went to Home Depot, those are the only windows Home Depot had fiberglass, and that's what I installed. And I came 3 times personally, showed the city, those are the windows I'm going to install. They requested also the receipts to make sure those are the fiberglass windows. They had to go to Home Depot, get it approved that this is actually a fiberglass window frame, and
Okay.
and that's it basically. That's all I can say.
Okay, please. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, why don't we have an opportunity to hear Mr. Joe?
From my understanding, from the history of this, the building permit for the addition at the rear, that one had been finalized. Although the plans do demonstrate the windows are to be fiberglass hung windows, I'm not too sure if that was just overlooked by building department. Subsequently to this addition and this permit here, there was a building permit to change out the existing windows around the house. Now that one had been approved by planning for fiberglass hung windows to be recessed. And that's the one that had not been finalized, as when the inspector went out to look at these windows, they did not match the window schedule of that submitted permit, and that one was not finalized.
Okay.
But the ones that were for the addition, they were.
Let me see if I can go through this. We have a relatively modest addition to the back of the house, and those plans indicated a type of window. Were the type of windows that were installed on that modest addition the same windows that were reflected in the plans that were approved and permitted?
No, they do not match.
Okay. Second, the building department typically does not review inspections for windows. If it was a design review case, which it was not, design review would have gone out there and we've looked at the windows because that's what they do. Given that it was not necessary for design review, the building department reviews things that are primarily construction related. Location of the addition, foundations, rough electrical and plumbing, electrical, fine electrical, drywall nailing, stud framing, insulation roof, and closure. And that gives you your final when you do a typical building permit. That was probably the reason, probably the building inspector finalized it because they don't look for things that are normally reviewed by design review. Next, the applicant wants to do a window change out for the whole house now. And they come in and they want to pull a permit and show drawings for that total house remodel for the windows. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Joe?
That's correct. They're trying to propose the windows and the rest of the portion of the house, but I believe the way that the permits reflect, it should be wrapped around the whole entire house, but...
Okay, so the applicant comes back in at a later time and shows the drawings that they want to change out all the windows. So they came to the city to change out all the windows. Do the drawings to change out all the windows, are they reflected in are they the same windows that were installed today on those drawings?
No, they do not match.
Okay, they're totally different than what the applicant depicted that they wanted to install for the whole house. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the first set of drawings, in recap, the first set of drawings that they got the permit with were not the windows that they got approved for. But it was finalized because of what I just described, the process of inspection. They come back and they show drawings which show a typical or a type of window that they want to install for the whole house. And those are not the drawings reflected accurately of what they installed there.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions?
So, but when you read the report, it says that when the inspector went to the project site to inspect the windows for the addition, that's when they discovered that the windows for the rest of the house did not meet the permit drawing.
Okay.
And that's why he did not sign off on it.
And that isn't, so let's get that clarified.
And
That is
the question that I have, maybe you
could you still see the black paper on the windows and all that stuff? From my understanding, the construction was done for the addition, so it looks as is the photographs on the exhibit. Sorry.
Wouldn't the inspector have to come out to inspect
Plaster.
the paper
The
before it's
waterproof.
finalized, before it's plastered, to make sure it's waterproofed, etc.? And then he would notice at that time because the windows.
That's correct.
In the 30s, I don't know.
Well, when you got now a permit to change up the windows, and you take out the existing windows, there are some steps along the way. Instead of wrapping it all up, they check for lath, they check for waterproofment, they check for the scratch coat, the brown coat, and then the color coat. So the inspector is going to be coming out there a few times, even for a window change out. It looks like they leapfrogged and just put on the nail-on ones, and just wanted a quick final. That's what it appears like.
And let me just mention that Mr. Reza has volunteered to join us because he has been the planner that signed off on the original exemption for the windows when the inspector did not sign off and it became a design review board case. Dennis Joe took the case on as a design review board case, and I want to thank Mr. Insua for explaining the process very clearly. Just to reiterate, because we do have so many, part of what we do in planning is to facilitate the simpler projects, the roof change-outs and the window change-outs. In order to do that and to manage that properly with all of the other demands on our time, we do rely on the building inspectors to follow up on the inspections and do not do a design review for the more simple exemption, which is essentially a material change-out. We feel very lucky that many of our inspectors are coordinating with us, and we've provided them a checklist for just to look for this kind of thing. Our building inspectors are not trained in design review as our planners are, and we're very grateful when they do pick up on the subtleties of the difference in the window type. They don't always do that. We're constantly trying to improve our services, and we think that most of our inspectors have a much more keen eye today than they did a year ago or 2 years ago. But if we were to do inspections for every design review exemption, that would really challenge our workload and our workforce and our ability to process all the projects we do.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, what I'm hearing then is that, because there's a set of drawings that was permitted and it's clear on the drawing what's supposed to be done, it's really up to the owner to make sure they follow through. And the inspector, like Mr. Inches said, they go there to do their regular routine to make sure that things are legal, but they're not going to go there and just say, okay, well, this has a double hung. They're not going to do that. They're still leaving that up to the owner to make sure that they're actually meeting the requirements.
Right, and that's why sometimes it will be seen on the final, and finally, because if an inspector goes out for a framing inspection or for a waterproofing inspection, they're really focused on those pieces. And then when they're finaling and, crossing their T's and dotting their I's, it's not surprising to me that they, at the very end of the process, which was a very, window change out is a quick process. I'm not exactly sure how many inspections that would take. They did notice it, and we're grateful that they brought it to our attention.
And often, having done additions here in Glendale and stuff, often the first inspector that comes out is the general inspector that will do the foundation, the formwork, the framing, and then you don't see him for a while, and then the specialty inspectors will come out, the electrical, the plumbing, the roofing, all that other stuff, and then the last guy usually, or their gal, man or woman will be there, is that general one who looked at the whole thing. And there's sometimes a break in time there where the person who understands the full aspect of the project isn't there until the very end when he's buttoning everything up and finalizing it. So, okay. Any more questions at this point so we can go to more speakers? Okay.
Yes, I have a question. As far as the second permit is concerned, when the homeowner came in and asked to replace the remainder of the windows, what sort of windows did the applicant request? And maybe Mr. Reza could shed some light on that.
Windows that would be characteristic and compatible with the home. I believe they were a fiberglass or wood window, recessed, still to remain, and I believe a hung window.
Okay. And is this something that is indicated on the drawings anywhere? That it's specifically related to the second permitting of replacing the windows throughout the home?
I believe so. If I can, I'm not sure. Are these the what are drawings?
The drawings provided by the applicant, which we have at the table right now, are only for the addition at the rear. I did try to investigate what the second permit had been, see what the window schedule, what it had detailed and the plans it detailed. I was able to find it because the building department, if it basically remains stale and it sits there for a while, they won't keep it because it's not reported, and therefore it just drops off. They won't keep plans that are not permitted.
That's correct. The applicant reapplied us with a second set of drawings per the city standard. That a permit was pulled. However, an inspection was never called for, so that permit expired. Therefore, the building, when expired permits happen, the building department generally either scans or terminates the plans.
And so we have a situation then, if I could understand this correctly, where the homeowner came in the second time around, requested a permit specifically to change the windows at the remaining portion of the home.
Correct.
With new windows.
Correct.
And a discussion took place where there should be fiberglass windows
Fiberglass
and
or
to
wood.
match what is being proposed at the rear.
Or what was presumed to be in the rear.
What was presumed
To be in the rear.
Yes,
Okay.
compatible with the architectural style.
Very good. And so then there's nothing in writing that we have at this point that could illustrate to us exactly what was agreed upon for the applicant to install.
I don't believe so anymore because of the permit being expired.
And has the applicant provided us with any documentation from his end as to what he believes was permitted that second time around?
The file doesn't have any information for the second permit.
If I may. And so we have this conundrum then that what I'm trying to understand is what are we judging here? We have a window addition that was done, and what I'm trying to compare it to is what was supposed to be added on to something substantial that I could look on a drawing to judge this. And so that's one of my concerns is to understand what that is and some clarity there.
Can I piggyback a little bit? Okay, the second set of drawings that was for a permit, saying it expired.
Correct.
Correct. So there's no record of that anymore.
No, there is
But
not.
the report says that when the second inspector went and inspected the house, noticed that the remainder of the windows on the house did not meet the intent of the permit. So was he referring to this expired set of drawings?
Yes, that's correct.
So, but wouldn't we have a record that would say that windows were installed without a permit? Because technically that's what happened, right? I mean, a permit expires, the owner decides to use the same drawings to add those windows, and the inspector comes in and says, these don't meet what the drawings said they should be. But then what we're talking about here today is that set of drawing there was no permit, really.
Well, there was a permit that was pulled.
For windows?
For the windows.
For the balance of the windows of
Yes,
the house?
the remainder of the windows to be unified and to the city standards
Okay.
that we are now imposing.
There's just no drawing, there are no drawings.
Not yet, but there was one pulled. The applicant never called for an inspection. The permit expired, I believe, 180 days.
For the windows?
For the windows.
The additional.
The balance of
The balance of the windows, correct.
They pulled the permit, the permit expired.
Permit expired. When a permit expires, an inspector goes out, does a staff site visit to see if anything has changed, and maybe it was simply just the lack of knowledge of an applicant not knowing that they had to call for an inspection when they do this.
Okay.
They expire the permit. If nothing is done, or any type of compliance is done or rendered, then the building inspector refers the case to the city attorney. The city attorney's office then takes over the case. At that point, it's up to the building official or the senior building inspector to either terminate the plans or refer those plans to the city attorney's office. I'm not sure at this moment whether the city attorney's office has those plans. I don't know.
Okay, let me...
Yeah, so they referred the case to city attorney because, as you said, the inspector went there and the permit had expired, which means that the project was not compliant.
That's correct. It was not
So
compliant.
it's a legal matter at this point.
It was a legal matter.
So let me summarize then, for myself and hopefully others. The applicant gets a set of drawings for the modest addition and comes to the city. It's because of the nature of the addition, does not need design review. Planning signs it off because it sees that the windows that are being shown on those original permits are of the type of windows that you feel comfortable in approving, double-hung vinyl windows.
Correct.
Fiberglass windows. The applicant gets their permit, does construction, and does not install the windows that the permit is issued on and the plans are reflected. The inspector gives you a final, and they're done. Sometime later, the applicant says, we want to do all the other windows like the ones that the drawings showed that we got a permit for. But they did not install the windows that the drawings call for. But we want to do a permit to change out the windows that we were supposedly had done on the small addition.
Right.
They get the permit, and the permit expires because there's no activity on those window change-out. It's custom for the building department to go out, or some representative of the city, to see why did this permit expire. They paid their fee, they did their thing, but no activity on it. And at that time, the inspector saw that the windows had in fact changed from what was originally there. And that's when the matter then went to the city attorney or someone, because now it is a code issue that was done without permit. So, in quick recap, they did not install the windows that they originally shown on the small, modest addition. They then got a permit to say that they were going to do the windows per the windows on the permit, and they took advantage of that and made them all the non-approved windows that were shown, that were not shown on that modest addition. Okay.
I'm pretty clear, I think.
Okay, so let's go to the next applicant if we can. I'm going to keep them in the, I got a couple more, or speaker. Let me see where I was. Okay, this one here, this one here. Okay, why don't we have, I'll take it in the order that I received them. A neighbor, Florence Cohen. Good afternoon, ma'am. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Lawrence Cohn, 733 Olmsted Drive, Glendale, California. Our house is perpendicular to the back of theirs. It's right there. And I'm here to provide some historical perspective because we've lived there since for 35 years, and we knew the Richards, who were the original owners of the house. And it was a great house. They were wonderful. And when these people moved in, it was a chance to revitalize. The Richards, actually Ray died in the house. And they raised their family. They were wonderful. And now we've got a nice young family there again. I heard what you're all saying. We've watched every step of the process. They've really been very thoughtful in what they've done. And the windows, where they may not match the design, look a whole lot better since they finished the rest of the house to look like the back. We used to drive by going, the back looked one way and the side looked another way, and it just didn't go. If there's any way that you can approve them, perhaps giving some suggestions to tie the design in better. I'm sure it was all done in good faith. I know he wanted to keep, he was really worried about keeping the fiberglass, which is what your inspectors had asked of him, as opposed to vinyl or something else. And they're good people, and the house really looks a whole lot nicer since they've come in and done it, and I certainly hope you can approve. As a neighbor and their closest neighbor, we certainly have no objection whatsoever.
Thank you. Okay. And in the order that I received them, Mr. Peter Fouad, your name and address, sir, please.
My name is Peter Fouad, 1635 Ardeve, and I'm president of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association. I'm here on behalf of the association. I also saw this house being remodeled. I drive up and down Highland a lot. It's a fairly sort of an artery for the neighborhood, and it's quite visible being on a corner. We support the staff's recommendation that the windows should be changed. And if I can sort of cut through or understand what's been going on just the last few minutes, I think the second permit was obtained on the notion that the windows for the addition were as they were supposed to be, but they weren't. So I think the second permit does not support the current windows because they should have been what the first windows should have been. I also drove around the neighborhood a bit today and yesterday, and most of the homes in the area have old wood-style windows. There are some changes, but those new windows are better than the ones on this house. They are recessed. They're a bit more in keeping with the style of those homes. So these windows, I think, clearly do not match the style of the home. And I think they're incompatible with the neighborhood. And if I understand the discussions at council several months ago about how to deal with windows and vinyl windows and replacement windows, one of the key factors they looked at was, well, we're not going to say blanket yes or no, but it should at least be compatible with the neighborhood. I think these are incompatible with the neighborhood. I don't think they permit that they got, or that the grounds on which they got it, I don't think they complied with the permit. And I'm also astonished, I guess, that the city doesn't have a copy of what was permitted the second time around. But hopefully it's somewhere in the system or archived. But so, again, I would just like to say I think I would heartily recommend that you do require the windows to be changed out, just as one of the design review boards did several years ago on the house on Pacific, you may recall, towards Stalker. They put in windows that weren't permitted, and the design review forced them to take them out. They put in nice recessed, they may be wooded, fiberglass windows. That project looks great now, and I would hope you do the same here.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next speaker is Mr. Larry Cohn. Your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Larry Cohen. I am Flo's husband. I live at 733 Olmsted Drive, and we've been living in that house for, 79, I think, is when we moved in there. And we've seen a lot of changes in is that right?
75, she said.
75. Memory's the second thing to go. But we've watched remodeling done in various places in the neighborhood, and nothing is really standard in our neighborhood. These were all kind of custom, one-of-a-kind homes, and I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with the type of windows that our neighbor installed in his house. In fact, right across the street, across from Highland, if I recall correctly, there's somebody who has a big sliding glass door that comes right out to the lawn, right in the front yard there. And I've never taken an issue with that, and I don't take an issue with what my neighbor's done. I think he's improved the property quite substantially, because when the Richards were there, it was an old-style house. Very little was done with it other than to keep the green paint on it. And when my neighbor took over the property, he made substantial improvements to it, and I'm very happy with them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Why don't we give an opportunity for either the applicant or the designer to have a couple minutes? Either one. Why don't one of you? Oh, thank you, sir. Yes. Why don't we do that? Your name and address, please, again.
Okay. I'm Shanazarian with AMAC Group, 639 West Broadway, Glendale. Let me clarify. I think the discussion that you had with the staff was that the permit was issued originally for addition. It was final. It was down final with that type of a slab window. The inspector approved it. Now, whether it was part of it was one inspector who came to the site. It was not 3 or 4 different inspectors. One inspector came to the site and finished the project. Second permit was issued based on the notion that they're going to change the remaining of the windows and try to match. It was a fiberglass window. Now the owner went and he installed basically the same thing that it was back of the house, the same style. And he got inspection. There's an inspection card and inspection there's for the lathing and everything else of that. There's an inspection card that the owner has in his possession. Now I don't know as far as the permit being expired or not. I have no idea because I know at one point that the inspector came, I think per owner, they signed a card, and then there was a thing to not to final it because there was a neighbor complaining about it. That was the main issue on that. But as far as the meeting the code requirements, whatever the window is, now it could be like installed differently per plan, but I'm not sure because I don't have the plan in my hand at this moment, but I'm pretty sure that if I want, I could get it from whoever the contractor or who did the job. I can provide you a copy of it, and you can do a decision based on that. And I can also provide you with the card. I was not thinking that we were not going to have the card today, or you need the plan, because I was under the impression that you might have the copies at the city, because usually the city keeps one copy, and they even microfilm it. So. But just for clarification purposes, the project was approved, finalized on the addition part. The second part of it, there was a permit issued. As I indicated, I'm not aware if it expired or not, but the whole thing came up as one of the neighbors complained, or from the homeowner association or somebody complained about that. But the neighbors, none of the neighbors in that block, they have any problem with this project. And everybody's, based on the conversation that we had, they're happy. And if you want, I could provide you with the letter of support from all the neighbors.
Can you clarify or shed more light on why you think the final wasn't obtained? You said somebody complained. Now, have you heard it was a homeowners association, or are you?
I'm not, but I know that talking to on the original drawings we did not. Our office did not prepare the second drawing as far as the change of the windows. We prepared the drawings. So as far as I know, it was one of my associates handling this project. I'm not aware of it, but unfortunately he's not with me anymore. So I don't know as far as the inspection, but I know from the conversation that we had that there was somebody complaining, and the building department inspector came back and he said that there's complaining about this project, the window.
So it was specifically about the windows?
Specifically about the window.
Okay. Which makes sense as to why it stopped.
Yeah. If they allow the window to be installed in that time, which is exposed and it's on the street side of it, why cannot you maintain the same look throughout the house if you're proposing to change the remaining of the windows?
The second question I have is the paperwork that you provided,
yes,
where you have handwritten notes next to the
yes, 2
windows, well, next to the one window that's apparent from the street,
yes,
that is visible from the street. You're indicating that that somebody at the counter approved the look of that window,
I believe
or
so.
The style of that
As
window.
I indicated, the original plans our office did not prepare. The owner did, but there's a copy of that original plan that shows what windows to be changed,
yes,
and what windows not to be. But that's the original plan, first submittal for remodeling of the house, an addition. The second...
And what exactly should we refer to and hone in on that drawing that you think?
If I may approach, maybe...
Yes.
This is the window in question, as new, and these are the other windows. I apologize. This is the street. Okay. As I indicated, these are the new windows specified on these drawings, and this is the other street. This is Highland. I believe this is Olmsted, and this is what it is exposed. And the window schedule is typical to be fiberglass to double hung, which at the back are double hung, some of them. So this is the window that, and then it says item to be, wooden to be, I mean the existing wouldn't remain, I mean the windows to remain. So this is the project. If I take a look at the elevation, I haven't seen this as provided, so maybe there's some clarification as well on this. But
Okay.
Could I ask him a question? My question is, I mean, you can see we're conflicted in that these drawings show on a schedule, on a floor plan, and on an elevation, double hung windows.
Correct.
What's it showing on the existing photos that they're sliders?
One of them is sliders.
One is a slider.
One of them is slided. The other one is double hung.
The back ones, okay. So then, from there, then you guys prepared the second set of documents that got permitted to change out the rest of the windows on the rest of the house.
Correct, from this point on.
Right. Those are the ones. On those drawings, are you showing double hung windows or sliders?
That's what I'm not sure, but whatever was probably shown in there.
Is this what was submitted, you think?
I'm not sure. That's what my question is. I don't know. If you wish, I could provide you with a copy from the original contractor who did the work and maybe bring it to you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe you can help. Do you know, or maybe the owner knows, the manufacturer of the windows that we have right now? Who is the manufacturer? What is the name of the manufacturing company?
We can't have.
If you can please come up, and I want to wrap this portion up. But
Purchased from Home Depot, and I brought the receipts to the city, showing the city that it's actually.
But who's the
fiberglass.
manufacturer?
I can find out. I can go to Home Depot. They keep records over there. I can find out.
It's very important to be very prepared for
Never
anything.
been in a situation like
You know,
this.
I can't imagine coming to the DRB board to argue your case and be so lack of preparation. No permits, nothing to justify or support your case. It's very important because all we can do is rely upon what you're telling us. But if you said, here are my permits, here are my plans, here are the things, it's hard to refute that. Okay, you got them at Home Depot, but you don't know who the manufacturer was. Okay.
I can still get it. They keep records.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you very
Can I
much.
have a question? Can I ask a question to
Of course.
staff?
Let me just close the public portion of the meeting. Please, Mr. Lipp.
Just have a question for staff. When somebody comes to get a permit to change out their windows, don't we specify what color or what? I mean, we determine what color we're using, right? At that point.
I think Gabe may be able to. We can respond in general, but I think Gabe can also respond to this specific case. He has a clear recollection. If I just want to also let you know, if the board thinks that there may be additional information available that would shed light on the case, we could continue the case. We try not to do that. What we've tried to do is to have all the information available to you. Both our planners have done a lot of research for this, and other planners, including Jay Platt, have been involved in working with the applicant prior to. If we did have our DRB stamped plans, we would have them for you, but because of our space challenges, we don't always we can't always save everything. We try to save as much as we can. If it's not for example, if it's not something that comes to DRB and it doesn't get a case file, we will sometimes have a miscellaneous file that goes into the address file with those plans, but we don't we don't always do that, particularly if we had assumed that the previous project had been done as fiberglass double-hung windows, and I think Mr. Reza also spent some time working with the applicant prior to the second permit, the 18 window replacement changeout, so he may also be able to shed some light on what was permitted.
Your question is in...
Yeah, I guess in general and then specifically.
Typically, the staff looks at compatibility, the material use, and as well as the functionality of the windows in relation to the architecture of the existing home. To say that we permit an exact color, it's hard to say. We do our best to make sure that the material is paintable so that the homeowner could choose to paint whatever color they would like to do. Of course, if the case went to design review and things are different, and it's a different case. But for this particular case, I did work with the applicant on that second permit to get it to a level to where we felt we can approve it. And that's what we did. So we felt that the block frame, hung windows, and without the internal grids were something that we can approve over the counter and not send this through a public hearing process. That's the permit that was never formed.
So white could have been an option for. I guess my.
I don't. Potentially.
The history of the board, it just seems like why get white fiberglass windows? I mean, you know, you might as well just stick with vinyl then or something. You know, that's something that we would never, from what we've been doing. You know?
True. We look after that it's paintable, but I do not direct the applicants to paint them white. It's just I believe the way that they came.
Well, that's the color they picked.
But the owner stated that when he went to Home Depot, he said that's the only fiberglass windows they had. So it's as if the style was ignored.
No, I've been to Home Depot. They have many different types of.
I'm just saying he stated that was the only fiberglass windows, and he had to get fiberglass. So that just comes across to me that that's what was there, that's what I got in ignorance of the plan.
That could be, yeah.
Okay.
That's.
Any more dialogue you want to have, or? Well, go ahead, Ms. Palmer.
I'm just confused that the city doesn't happen to have a signed-off permit, or have a permit and said that that inspections were not called for, and the applicant says they have a card with inspections. So I would really want some clarification there. If the owner could produce that material and the old plans, I think that would be really helpful.
And please, Velia.
The combination building permit from 2008 regarding, and this is what was on the permit, combination building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing permit, adding 160 square feet to east side of existing building, adding one bathroom to master bedroom, and extending bathroom at the third bedroom. Okay, so this would be the set of plans that you see directly behind Board Member Aliano. That building permit was finalized, and so it was signed off. There were multiple inspections done by multiple inspectors of various trades that we do have records. So again, the inspectors take a look at their various trades, whether it's lath and plaster, plumbing, electrical, and whatnot. It was signed off. Those plans that were stamped approved by the various departments are no longer, once the permit is finalized, they're sent out either to be archived or to be scanned or whatnot, and those are no longer in the building department at this point in time. They have been sent off, so we do not have copies of those. We do have records of a building permit pulled August 2008 to remove and replace 18 windows.
What was the date of the first permit?
The very first permit was January 10th, 2008.
So this was 7 months
So
after.
this is in August 2008. There was a building permit pulled. Okay, there were 2 inspections done by 2 different inspectors.
On the second
on
permit.
on the second permit to remove and replace 18 windows.
Which inspectors were they? And
So
what
pe-
did they approve?
Well, and unfortunately, it's very cryptic because I'm only going off our archive records that are available on the computer, but, there's a brown coat that was approved by J. Edmond, and then there was a call for a building final by Lonnie Brown, which, again, it looks like the building permit was never finalized.
And when you say a call for building finalization, what do you mean by that?
Call to final a building permit.
I see. So you put in a request
You
for
put in
inspection.
a request, correct.
And then
And so
you're
the-
supposed to call the next mornings between 7 and 8, and the inspector tells you what time they're going to come out, and they're going to come out.
The inspector, it appears that, and again, I don't want to speak to the building inspector records because I'm not sure, if I'm reading that their records correctly, but they were called, they went out to inspect it, but there was no building permit finalized. So when, again,
For
this is, I
whatever
think, where we're at right now is the fact that the building permit for this replacement of windows was never finalized by the building department, and that's why we're here
Because
today.
of the
Because
discrepancy of what was-
and again, when you're taking a look at it, when you have an addition, you have all the multiple different trades and all the different building inspectors coming out. They're taking a look. Overall, it looks fine. They're finalized. The building permit moves on. That building permit, like I said, the plans are no longer with the building department or building division in this case, since we're all one big department. They're no longer on the floor. Now, why the window permit is not in its cubbyhole, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, that's something that we still need to look into.
Well, we could get that information.
But it appears that it would be very easy to resolve because, according to the applicant, he still has a stamped set of plans. If he has a stamped set of plans, perhaps the board would like to continue this matter for 2 weeks, have the applicant provide a stamped set of plans. We can take a look for our set of stamped plans, and that might have your answer.
Was the final called,
What was that?
they said the permits had expired. Was the final called after the permits had expired?
Yeah, what were the dates of the two inspections?
Unfortunately, I don't see now on this particular screen that I printed out, I don't have the expiration of that permit. I see that the permit was issued on August 26th.
Okay.
The brown coat was approved on September 1st, and the second one for final was called on September the 15th,
And so
2008.
And so we could assume that the permit was valid at that point in time because it's a minimum of 6 months.
180
The last
days.
one.
Correct.
180 days.
And this was only 3 weeks after the permit was issued.
Doesn't make sense.
So basically expired because they didn't finalize it.
Right, and
They didn't get approved at that one final.
Correct.
And it expires, I don't know the exact, but after your last inspection. So after your last inspection, that's when the clock starts.
Right, so if that's September 15th,
That's when the clock starts.
2008,
Correct.
180 days after that
You have
would
to have
have put
activity.
you,
March of 09.
March of 09.
I agree in that with staff's recommendation that perhaps it's a good idea to continue this for a period of time in order for us to get some information together. We're being asked to judge the addition of your house and windows. So we are talking about a substantial investment here, and this board, and specifically 5 of us, are being asked to make that decision. I think it makes sense for us to continue this matter so that staff could go through the archives, and that's going to take a little bit of time for staff to go through the microfiche and the scanning and whatnot to try to get some of that information that we've been requesting, if possible. At the same time, the applicant said or indicated that he is going to go get in touch with the contractor to see if he could obtain a copy of the orange card and also the stamped building permits. And so the applicant, I assume, is going to make an attempt to get that information. What I'm having some issues with is the fact that the rear portion was legalized, was finalized. So a permit was pulled, and I think it's evident that the windows that were indicated on the first permit were not installed per what was permitted. So that is, I think, what we've figured out. However, that permit was finalized, And so then at some point in time, the applicant came forward and said, I want to replace the rest of the windows per what was already installed. So if it is an, let's say, unexperienced homeowner that doesn't deal with this kind of construction issues on a daily basis, might have assumed that, well, we have an addition based on some windows that were installed and approved, and so I'm doing the rest of it. Now, if we get some information that sheds some light on what is being presented to us, then I think that could help me personally in trying to understand and really make this difficult decision. Because again, I find it's difficult for us DRB members to get these kind of cases because they come to us and it's emotional. There's homeowners that have invested money. There's neighbors that support a given addition or neighbors that don't support it. There's homeowner associations that oppose it. Whatever the issue is, we're being asked to make that decision, and I believe it's important for us to have all the documentation in front of us.
Okay.
But the contractor should have not only the construction set, but they should have the set that has the city stamp, and that's the one that we want.
That's my point, because I think that it's very important. We might have multiple copies out there, and
Right.
planning department has multiple copies sometimes being presented. We need
I say bring them all in.
We
because
need to have
Yeah, but there has to be
the
the permit
set of
set.
drawings that are actually stamped by the city.
Do we know, oh, sorry.
Ms. Palmer, anything you want to weigh
That's
in?
it. I think it's important.
Mr.
have that.
Wu, do you have anything else?
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Ms. Palmer.
I lost it here. Oh, do we have any knowledge as to whether all the windows in the rest of the house, as they were reinstalled, did they change shape? Did they become bigger? Did they reconfigure the sizes?
It appears that they just replaced
I think they
size
just
for
nailed
size.
down, yeah.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let me
got
just say a few things, because from what I've observed, something that I believe is not necessarily the responsibility of the city nor the inspectors to do has occurred here. And I'll show a couple examples. Is that this project is the project of the homeowners. They're the ones who own this project. They're the ones who have this home. And when they document something and they say this is the way we're going to do it and we're going to get our permit, they're the ones who ultimately have the last word. They're the ones who are saying this is the way we're going to do it. And when you look at the drawings of the original edition, clearly it shows that the nature of the windows that they're going to install per permit, this is what they said they're going to do, is they're going to do fiberglass, dual glaze, double hung, and then the existing windows to remain. So the intent there is that these double hung windows that are for the addition are going to be new, contemporary, highly engineered windows. But that when you compare them to the older 1943 windows, the intent is to highly engineered, more efficient windows, but the design is there. Sills, double hung, true divided lights, whatever it is. And that's what we've always gone to. That's what they said they were going to do. And as we all have done, we're all professionals in this industry, and we know that inspectors come, they inspect it, and then they go. They got about 40 things to do in one day. And if they're being asked to, to have the benefit placed on them, they have now the responsibility to check every nook and cranny. I believe that that is inappropriate for inspectors to have to do that all the time, especially on the first permit that was not done from the design review. If the first permit was processed through the planning department and design review, some planner would have gone out as a item in the plan check or in the permitting to check that off, because that's what they do. When a construction site starts, the building inspector is a building inspector. They go out and inspect building items. Typically, if there's a design item which passed design review, they don't worry about it. 99.9% of the time, they're doing building and safety. And they're not in the notion, as Stephanie indicated, or in the mindset to check to see if the mullions are the right thickness, if the sills are the right. That's not their job primarily. They're building inspector. The construction happens, the building inspector says permits are good, he's not inspecting windows, and everything is fine for construction, and they finalize it. They're presuming that everything is done properly, as I would presume if I was a building inspector. That seems logical to me. Sometime shortly thereafter, the applicant, the homeowner, puts together this set of drawings that says, we want to do a full window change-out. And the full window change-out are going to match the existing, which the original plan said were going to be of a certain type, and that they indicate that these windows are going to match the existing, and they tell you in the window schedule what type of windows are going to be. And at the very end, they say the manufacturer is going to be Milgard, Marvin, Pella, or equal, already giving you an indication that the original plan and what they're planning on doing here is of higher quality windows, which is what we traditionally and typically have done on design review and planning, and everything that's been documented, that the character and nature of the neighborhood and the quality of the work that we see there is with that overriding feeling of, is it neighborhood compatible? And they indicate here, Milgard, Marvin, Pella, or equal windows, already telling you high quality windows. The applicant then goes to Home Depot and buys Home Depot type windows. Nothing wrong with Home Depot type windows, if you will, but in this city, clearly Home Depot type windows that you just pull off the shelf or whatever are not what we've been approving, and that's been clear for many, many years. But the applicant does that. The building inspector comes out for the windows. Now we're the windows. Forget the addition, because that's behind the wall, the fence, and the building inspector comes out clearly for the windows, and in some period of that time says those windows are not approvable. I don't see the problem that we're facing here today, needing more permits, more requirements. It's crystal clear. When the permits were pulled for the windows, and they talk about these windows, and the inspector comes out to inspect windows that are documented here, and they're clearly not those windows, that's where we had the problem. I don't need to have any more information to see the permit, what was issued, because when the job was done specifically for windows, that's where it was caught. And we have the records right here showing, over there. I guess you're pointing to something, Velia.
Oh, those are, if we're just...
Okay, let me finish. Okay,
Yeah,
so I am very, very sensitive to expenses that homeowners go through. It's horrible to spend a lot of money and effort to do something, but clearly the homeowners, the first time they had a chance to do it right, they chose not to do it the way that the plans agreed. The plans were not followed with respect to the windows on the addition. The second time they chose to do it, they didn't follow the plans again. At what point do the city or us say, you weren't doing what you said you were going to do anyway? I'm sorry that you spent this expense and this time and this burden, but you didn't do what you said you were going to do in the drawings. So anyway, I think that unfortunately there was an intent here, in my observation, to mislead from what the documents are reflecting to ultimately were put out there. Anyway.
Question for
Mr.
you.
Oleano.
Well, I mean, you were reading off from this drawing. We're assuming that these were the permit drawings, the second permit drawings. That's the assumption.
No, I don't think these are.
Well, you're right. The architect says he's not sure if these were the ones. That's why I was saying if we had a copy of the permit drawings, it would be crystal clear, because the contractor would have those. Because actually on this drawing here, there's a contradiction. The schedule, if you look at the notes, it says note here, it says note, all new windows to match existing. But then when you look at the schedule and you look under the columns, they're either fixed or sliders. So the schedule doesn't match what's existing, but the note says to match existing. So
there's a lot of
there's a contradiction.
Yes.
So we have here a set of drawings that we're not sure that's what was permitted. And, for me, yeah, I mean, it could be clear cut. You could say, you don't follow the plans, you didn't follow the permit. But again, what if, the set of drawing that the contractor has actually says that if it actually says you're supposed to use double-hung windows and they have to be fiberglass and they put these, then there's no question. They didn't comply.
Well, I would concur. I would concur that we really don't want to have you tear out windows and spend unnecessary time and money. And I would support, as I think what our commissioners are saying, is let's move this to the next meeting. Let's give us opportunities to get the documentation, because it's worth that. We don't want you to have to do something that is unnecessary and costly. You deserve that. Yet at the same time today, you know how I feel. It seems like there was enough there. So if that's the way we're going, and I would support that, why don't we see if we can bring it up for a vote or whatever the process is.
It could end up being a total waste of time.
But they deserve it.
Right. Because, if the drawings that we get are not the exact copy that the city used to have, then it's a waste of time. Because if it's just a building set of drawings without any stamps, they don't mean anything, right? I think that has to be understood.
Yes.
In the card.
And you know, the reason why I made the point of maybe bringing it back is, you know, we have one case on our agenda this evening. Obviously, it's a slow economy. We used to have 4, 5, 6 cases. So we're all volunteers. We've come here, and, you know, we're volunteering our time to the community, and this is what we do. And so if I have to give up a half an hour or an hour of my time to really find out if there is an issue that should have come up, it's worth the 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
But if we were totally jammed, it's a different thing, but we're not.
Absolutely. And and I concur, even if we were totally jammed, I think in this case, we've been so consistent on being sensitive to people's spending money unnecessarily. So, all right, Mr. Yu, are you comfortable with that? I see you. Okay, well,
I just have to say that if it gets put to the next meeting, I will not be able to attend. I'm going to be out of the state.
okay.
So if the staff needs more time, then certainly I can make it 4 weeks, but I don't want my absence to sort of have any...
Ms. Reich, do you have a...
We would recommend that you continue to a date certain because staff has spent a lot of time and done a lot of research on this, and we're not sure if a stamped set of plans exists that might be available because some time has passed. So we would recommend if we don't think that we'll have a quorum in 2 weeks, maybe we would continue it to another date certain, but let's make sure we'll have a quorum in 2 weeks, and then continue it to a date certain.
Well, let me ask 2 questions. Do we believe the staff has enough time to cull through the drawings or cull through the records in 2 weeks so that we have the date certain of April 29th?
Again, I would also advise or recommend to the board as a condition for the continuation motion to have the applicant provide any drawings that are stamped by city stamps within a week, if possible, because that way, or at least to provide it at the next hearing date, which would be either April the 29th or May the 13th.
Would you need it prior to the I want to make it the 29th. Would you need it more time? Would you want to see those drawings? Would you, staff, want to see those drawings prior to the 29th, or if they brought their documentations at the 29th, that would be appropriate?
Well, and again, if they were to provide the drawings prior to, well, at the beginning of next Monday, this coming Monday, we would then be able to go ahead and at least comment on like a very brief staff report that we've been, we have reviewed the plans and this is what we have. But if we don't have it by next Monday, unfortunately, whether or not, it really doesn't matter because we wouldn't be able to comment on them anyway.
Yeah. I would also say that if the case is continued for more information, typically staff doesn't do a report. You wouldn't be getting another report. The public hearing is closed, so there wouldn't be any additional noticing. If additional neighbors or speakers showed up, that would be the chair's decision, discretion to open the public hearing again.
Okay.
But you've closed the public hearing, and staff doesn't need any additional time because we've done what we believe is a very complete search. If the applicant has stamped drawings, that would be information that would be relevant. We're not sure they do because they haven't produced any drawings so far.
Need that potentially relevant information prior to the next ARB, which is scheduled for the 29th.
We would probably like those drawings a couple of days beforehand, so the 26th, 27th would be useful to us. Nobody likes surprises at the meeting.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Simon.
From what I heard, the applicant is going to attempt to get some drawings from the contractor, and so that might take some time. And what we need to understand really is from the applicant is that they should get in touch with staff at some point this week and indicate to you how long it's going to take for them to get these drawings together, because at that point in time when you get the drawings, it's important for staff to have enough time to really look through your records and make sure that you have enough documentation and whatnot to support or not support or what is being presented. And so if we say they have to provide it by Monday, which is the 19th of April, I'm not sure they'll be able to get in touch with
No. Here's I think what we should do. I think we should continue this to the date certain of the 29th of April, and that the applicant must get all relevant documents into the department to a case planner or whoever will say by the 26th of April, which is Monday. You must gather any relevant information you believe, the permits, the approved set of drawings, whatever you believe is appropriate by the close of business day of Monday the 26th. Gives you over a week, almost a week and a couple days. Get it to staff by the close of business day on Monday the 26th so that we can prepare to review this on the 29th. I think it's not a whole remodel. It's just the permits for the windows, and I think those could be easily gathered by whoever did the work. I think we need to. I think that would be better.
And if they can't get it, let's say if the contractor's out of town, then what do you do then?
Then I think we take the case as is and what we have, and we decide on what.
I would concur. The 29th, we're going to have our DRB. The 26th, they have to have it by close of business day, and that should be more than enough time to get this thing moving along. That would be my suggestion.
We should know now if the contractor's out of town.
No. That's, again, we can only do what we can look at. They have a responsibility, and I think that's more than appropriate. That's what I would suggest.
You know, it's working with contractors and subcontractors. I know you get in touch with them, and sometimes you leave a message, and especially if it's something that they've done in the past, you leave a message, they've been paid, and now you're asking them to get some documentation together and bring it forward. So it does take some time to gather these things, and I'm not in a huge hurry where, 7 days or 14 days this way or that way makes a big difference to me. So I'm not, I guess, a big fan of just putting a gun to someone's head and saying, you have to get this by the 26th, because I just don't see that sort of sense of urgency where it can't wait till 2 weeks from the 29th. So that's my opinion on that matter.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's just that the people that are involved, they're still here. And there's 3 chances of plans, somebody having some kind of copy of a plan. I mean, you have the owner who originally pulled the permits or was involved, the architect who was originally who drafted up the documents, chance for them to have a plan, the contractor who hopefully they'll be able to contact. I mean, one of them has to have a copy of an approved plan, and so that's why. If we're talking about past architects and this kind of stuff, I could understand maybe let's give them a little more leeway. But, it would seem like that's something that they would bring anyway to something like this, because it is such an important, right? So
I just think they've been unprepared for this, and so I think another 10 days is adequate time.
Okay.
Motion to continue based on that
I'll make a
comment?
motion to continue to a date certain, the 29th, I believe is what mentioned.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Yu and a second by Board Member Palmer to continue this application for a date certain of April 29th with a condition, number 1, that the applicant is to provide an original stamped drawings of the window application by the date of April 26th, which is the Monday prior to the next scheduled hearing.
Should we include the
Any document.
signed permit also, that they had said they had signed permits? I mean, signed...
Yeah, they need to get us the signed permits and the permit card, the orange card.
Okay, to include the inspection card. Is that what you're saying?
Inspection
Inspection card. Okay.
And they have a copy of the permit application. They should bring it in.
They said they had the card.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do they have? I mean, I would bring it.
Can I call roll call then? Okay. This will be roll call. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Board Member Simonia?
Yes.
Chairperson Insua?
Yes.
We have a vote of 5-0 to continue this application for a date certain of April 29th.
Okay. I think the next thing are the minutes.
Correct. The next item on tonight's agenda would be the minutes of March the 18th, and board members Palmer, Simonian, and you were present. Board members Insua and Eliano were not. So we would need to have only those board members who were present actually vote on the minutes.
I would move to approve those minutes.
A motion by board member Palmer.
I'll second.
Board member you. Board member Palmer.
Yes.
Board member Simonian.
Yes.
Board member you.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0. And Stephanie, any staff announcements? There are no other staff announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn at 6:35?
Motion to adjourn?